Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about the history of coffee. There's too much to state with an amount of time I have, but I'm going to give you guys the general idea. First, it all starts over a legend. So, supposedly, an Arabian shepherd found his goats like jumping excitedly, like too energized. So he ended up going and investigating it. So he found this dark green shrub, okay, with bright red cherries on it. But later he soon realized that the bright red cherries is the stimulating effect that his goats had because they ate it and all. So, but then later in the years, a couple years later, monks ended up finding out about it too. So the monks ended up trying it too in order to stay awake during a long extended prayer time. So then after the monks tried it, they were like distributing it around other monks around the world and all. So then that's supposedly how coffee was born. But started in Arabian Peninsula around the 15th century in the Yemenite district of Arabia. Arabia. Sooner or later, the coffee shops ended up opening up and spreading around throughout the East. Though it's not in U.S. yet. U.S. isn't even there anymore yet. Not anymore. It's not even invented yet or anything. But well, it is, but it's like not called U.S. or anything anymore. But they ended up, the coffee shops ended up being a social activities, like for example, the School of the Wise. That's what they are known. It is known as for people sharing important information, exchanging it at the important center. Okay, so that's the coffee shops, what they would consider important, but once it got so big, the coffee shops throughout the East Arabia became like so big. Europeans and all was traveling there to go there and all. So then Europeans ended up going back to Europe and actually discussing about it and telling the stories of the dark black beverage. So the controversy was so big that Pope Clement the Eighth, I believe it was asked to interfere. He did not say anything till he ended up personally trying it out. So once he tried it out, before making a decision, he found it satisfying. So he ended up giving everybody the approval. But before that, the Europeans was with coffee. They thought it was their reaction was with suspicion, and fear. The bitter. Are calling it the bitter intervention of Satan. Okay, so the devil. So they thought the coffee was related to the devil, which I got some facts on that one. But to get a little ahead, soon it was a social activity and a communication in major cities of England, Australia, France, Germany, and Holland, which is surprising about Germany because at the time they were having some issues there with politics and all, but it's a whole different story. But in England, it was called at the time penny universities, which that means if they pay 1 penny, which I swear I wish this was true nowadays, because I would be rich, but they ended up calling it Penny University because if you paid a penny for a cup of coffee, and to intervene with conversation that was taking place within the coffee shops and all. But later on, they ended up switching, like, okay, at the time they drank, not a lot of people know this, but a certain, like, Spanish speaking culture still does this, drinking wine at every meal. But common breakfast drink was, at the time, beer and wine. But soon coffee got really out there, so a lot of people ended up actually deciding to go with coffee instead because coffee gave them more energized and kept them up, unlike anything else. And then also, not a lot of people know this, but the work was more efficient when they switched from beer and wine in the morning to coffee for the breakfast drink. That is my breakfast total. But to go ahead like a couple centuries, Okay, so but by the middle 1600s, coffee was brought to New Amsterdam, which is later called New York by the British. But throughout the coffee houses rapidly appearing, the tea. Okay, so now we're to U.S. How it came to U.S. The tea ended up actually. There was the Boston Tea Party. A lot of people was so mad about the British taxing the tea. So a lot of people was trying to like find different things like alcohol at the time, but then it ended up being prohibitive. It ended up being like illegal for a while, then legal, then it's just government nowadays, still to this day. But it kept continuing with the issues with British and taxing tea Americans. Well, at the time, I'm gonna just call them Americans. But at the time, Americans, they would kept taxing them, so they changed their drinking preference to coffee. And here's a quote by Thomas Jefferson: "Coffee, the favorite drink of the civilized world." But by 1714, the mayor of Amsterdam presented a gift to the king, the ninth, I believe, of France. The king then ordered it to be planted in their garden in prayers. And then later, 90s later, a naval officer obtained the scene from the king himself. And then leading to a voyage, the naval officer was on a voyage that soon he traveled in the sea to Martinique, and then he ended up transferring there, and that's pretty much how it all like transferred everywhere. But once it planted seeds, not only drive, but over 13 million trees on an island of Martinique within the next 50 years. Just think, it's not just over like a billion years. It's just But a lot of people was sent to try to get some seeds, and then there was actually one, which is very funny because a lot of people nowadays is like, But the thing is, there's a queen. The governor's wife, a French, but the French governor's wife she had like a little crush on Francisco de Melo Maleta. So she ended up giving him a bouquet of flowers. But inside was in of coffee seeds. To this day, and this day right now, would be able to begin a $1 billion industry. But overall, it ended up being the world's most profitable export crops. After the crude oil, coffee is the most sought commodity in the world. So there's a lot of facts with the history of coffee. But that was pretty much the general. I could talk for hours on it, but I was trying to like speed up. I'm talking so fast and all. But if anybody has any questions, my email is elizabethzyke@gmail.com. And have a good day.